So I just thought we should recap what went wrong in the last cycle. And this is what I could come across as what people made mistakes in the last cycle. And essentially what people did, if I go back to 2007, was people started becoming much more aggressive as markets went up. Actually, if you want to prevent mistakes, you actually cannot become much more aggressive after the market has gone up very substantially. And essentially asset allocation has to be counter-cyclical. So if you go back to 2007, what people went wrong was they actually became pro-cyclical, and they went in for looking at short-term performance as their model of allocating money. And in 2007, you had an experience where I guess ex-infra, hardly any other theme got money, including large caps. Mainly because people looked at 1-year performance and 2-year performance and even 3-year performance at that point of time and came to a clear conclusion that the only way to make money was to invest in infra. That turned out to be a wrong decision in retrospect, but in 2007, if you had gone and looked at 1-year, 2-year and 3-year performance, it was very clear that it was infra which dominated everything. And so, how to prevent all the money from going into one theme was a challenge. And I remember in value investing, it was very difficult to buy infra. So if you looked at the entire portfolio of almost all schemes in 2007, they were forced to be more infra-oriented, maybe some less, some more. And the schemes, the companies which did, the funds which did well in 2007 were the funds which did very badly thereafter. And the funds which did badly in 2007 have been the best performing funds post-2007. So when you see one theme becoming very large in every portfolio, it becomes a very simple idea for you to realize that we are slowly approaching 2007. And I don't mean a sector. If you recall 99-2000, which was another theme, and if you go back to 99-2000 also, the same thing happened, except that instead of infra, at that time the theme was technology. And at that point of time, TMT used to be 40% of the most successful portfolio of 99, for example, 1999, and they were the worst performers subsequently. And the last what I have learned is people start ignoring valuations. So if you go back to 2007, people completely stopped looking at valuations. So essentially what I'm saying is, if I take the next 5 years, which is what Mr. Prem asked me to talk on, I think the mistakes that happened in 2007 will eventually happen in some year, maybe 2019, 2018. That's very difficult to predict. But what happens in 2018 would be quite similar to 2007. And that would be a year where, how you act in 2007 decided what happened to you as a asset allocator or as a wealth manager in the post-2007 phase. So the year 2007 turned out to be a very important year for all of you in this room. So finally there will be a year. That's very difficult to predict which year. But that year you have to handle things well. And as I keep telling people, on that year you have to be willing to look foolish. Now, are you willing to look foolish in 2007 by saying infra I won't invest in? That is the challenge. But I can assure you the people whose AUM in infra turned out to be very high in 2007, they were the wealth managers whose growth post-2007 was certainly lower. That I'm quite confident about. So finally, in our whole cycle, we will find that we are finally in a bubble. And in that bubble, which may be in 2019 or 20 or 21, you'll finally realize that what we have seen in most bubbles, and in my career I've seen 2000 and 2007 more closely. I have seen 1992 and 94-95, but I was less experienced then. And what we have seen very clearly is what you see in the height of the bubble is valuation is not connected to earnings. As Prashant pointed out, That is one thing which finally will show up, that you will have stocks which are totally unconnected to earnings, and you will see a situation where you will see a record collection of money. And as you know, in 1992, the quantum of money collected by Mastergain, or in 1994, the quantum of money collected by Morgan Stanley, if you put it on the basis of inflation, you know what the size of the fund would be, because Mastergain collected 4,500 crores in 1992 prices, and Morgan Stanley also collected a huge money, I think 2,500 crores or 3,000 crores in 1994. So if you put inflation, you know what the numbers would be. And it would be very surprising if a bubble gets formed without record collection of money. And that record collection of money has to be maybe inflation adjusted. So you can't be even sure what that number would be, but it would be a record. It would be such a stupendous record that all of us will be saying, what a number. And obviously now it has to be much more than 10,000 crores or much more than that at this point of time, maybe 20,000 crores or something like that. I don't know what that number will be, but it will come along with the first. One of the things I have learned is that when you open the newspaper and you see statements which look absurd, you will soon realize that we are approaching towards the end of that bubble. And for example, in 1990, in Japan, the Emperor House, the real estate, was considered to be higher than the value of California, the whole state real estate. And in 2000, the value of Infosys was greater than the market cap of, I think, cement and steel industry put together. And DLF's market cap was higher than the market cap of the healthcare industry in 2007. And so, you will see one such statement, I'm sure, in the next bubble. And these are things why you start worrying. You needn't worry about it now. But when it happens, these are kind of indicators that it has started to happen. And as you know, in 2007, if you go back and retrospect, you will realize that there were so many shares where you had to look at 2014 earnings to invest in. So that was a 7-year forward you had to look at and say, okay, in 2014 this power plant will come, on the basis of which you have to invest. So in retrospect, it becomes very clear. But in 2007, why did people not realize that we were in a bubble? But I think the challenge, if you ask me at this point of time, is that we are not in bubble, but you will have to start educating your customers that eventually there is a cycle and there is a bust and there is a bubble. And when that bubble comes, you will have to act as per what I tell you. May not happen. I'm sure out of in this room, at least 75% will fail, but 25% can succeed if they are very focused on what they know. So frankly, you will be able to find out, because in 2007, it was impossible for anyone to follow any asset allocation rules. In this industry from 2004, I have been told that asset allocation is the most important mantra. And you will find that people have completely given up on asset allocation in 2007. They said there's only an asset class called equity. And that actually clearly showed up at that point of time. And it was very interesting because as an AMC, we did 2 years back some events. And in that event, equity used to be the last asset class presented, much after debt and real estate. And that I used to talk about those events. That itself showed that we have now come to the reverse end, that equities is attractive. Although at that point of time, neither the economy was looking good, nor the immediate outlook was looking good. But you saw the returns in the last 2 years. So I think the biggest problem I've seen in our industry is our inability to follow asset allocation. And because asset allocation in essence means selling the winner and buying the loser. And in 2007, for people to say, I'll sell my winner, which is the infrastructure fund, and put it in, let's say, debt or gold, was very, very difficult to people. Similarly, in 2000, to take out money from a technology-oriented fund and put it elsewhere was a big problem. So I would say that similarly, if you look at it, if you had 2 years of, let's say, 50% returns, I found that people normally lose their sense of valuation and things like that. And this I saw in infrastructure in 2007, which is why I would say if you had 1 more year of huge returns, you will have to start worrying. I would clearly say that, everyone will start liking one theme. And in my experience, value investing fails at the top of the bubble. It failed in 2000 and globally it failed in 2007. And I think when a bubble comes, that will fail. As I mentioned, and people will see new models of valuation. As you know, it was eyeball based. It was based on some EV to megawatt in power plants in 2007. So you will soon see new models of valuation in a bubble. When people ask me what will become a bubble, I tell them e-commerce maybe. It's quite possible that 3 years from now or 5 years from now you'll have 2-3 e-commerce companies in Nifty. And that would be possibly a sign actually, and if people ask me what that bubble would be, I would think that could be. Now where are we today? In 2 minutes I'll just complete that because I have almost run out of time. So what we realized, which I will tell you before that, is that the most important thing is don't change strategy after failure. In 2007, if you missed equities or missed infra, don't get into infra. Keep a checklist and what has resulted in your failure so far as a wealth manager. Keep a checklist as what has resulted in success as a wealth manager, and keep revising them over time. Don't be a permanent bull. Don't be a permanent bear. And please keep a reason on what will force you to change view. Otherwise, what will happen? You'll keep recommending a particular asset class when you should not be. So you should write it out and keep it and tell a lot of people. Tell all your customers. Then it becomes much easier. That's been my experience. So when I tell people that when current account deficit goes down, international investing will no longer be popular. When current account deficit came down, people called me and said, now CAD is down. Do you think international investing will work? So I had to tell them, no, it won't work. And the last thing is you can't be always right. So I would say that if people think you can be always right, you're not going to be right. And in the bubble, whenever a bubble happens, which today looks to me once in 10 years, you have to be willing to be wrong. If you're not willing to be wrong, you will not be right over a long period of time. So in the bubble, you have to agree to fail. And in that period, you might lose some customers. But in the long run, it has worked. But in those few years, it will fail. So where are we today? We are not in a bubble in equity. We are far away from a bubble in equity. We are in the opposite situation in fixed income. People are still underinvested in equity. Valuations are at long-term average. And equity valuation are very, very far away from peak. At the same time, I must tell you, debt is in an extremely attractive position. And in my framework, which we have, it shows as a extraordinarily attractive asset class at this point of time. It shows all the requirements for people to actually invest. There is zero flows from all of you. The valuations are extremely attractive, bad past returns, and there is quite a lot of fear. If I tell people to invest in long duration, people are very scared. So I would say debt is an extremely attractive situation. Actually, it is in a bust situation. And therefore, whenever you invest in a bust situation like you did in equity 1 year back, you had a very good experience and you're likely to have this experience. In our view, we are in a once in 12-year attractive position in fixed income. With that, I would like to close the conversation because I've run out of time. So thank you all.
Thank you, Naren. Thank you so much. Friends, I'm happy to introduce a person, and as the cliche goes, this is a person who needs no introduction. This is Rajdeep Sardesai. Rajdeep Sardesai has actually been learned today that he is going to be joining the India Today group. Till very recently, he was the editor-in-chief of CNN 18, which had CNN IBN, Lokmat, and IBN Marathi, Lokmat in the group. He has recently finished writing a book called The Elections That Have Changed India, which is likely to be launched in November. Okay. So Rajdeep, without without much ado, I invite you to tell us about ethics in public life. I think there's no one who's better qualified to talk about these things.